I knew the exact moment the company was doomed. It wasn't when the stock dipped into the single digits, and it wasn't when the old man, Big Jim, finally decided his liver had fought enough battles and retired to a hospice bed in Boca. No, it was the moment I saw his son, Chadwick, step out of a leased Porsche in the employee lot, wearing Italian loafers with no socks in a facility that processes industrial solvents and pressurized steam. Before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments, what city or country are you watching this from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. You know the type I'm talking about. 32 years old, teeth whitened to a shade that violates the laws of nature, and an MBA from a school that probably accepts crayon drawings as a thesis. He looked like he was generated by an AI prompted with arrogant finance bro who thinks manual labor is a quaint hobby. I watched him from my office window on the second floor. My office is essentially a glass cage overlooking the production floor of Site 14, a sprawling, sweating beast of a factory in Central Florida where humidity hangs in the air like a wet wool blanket and the ambient temperature is somewhere near Satan's armpit. I'm Mara. I'm the Director of Safety and Compliance. For 18 years, I've been the reason people go home to their families with all 10 fingers attached. I'm the buzzkill, the fun police, the woman who walks into a room and makes grown men hide their uncertified extension cords. And Chadwick? Chadwick was walking across the designated forklift lane while texting. I sighed, took a sip of lukewarm black coffee that tasted like battery acid and despair, and tapped on the glass. He didn't look up. A forklift driver named Hector, a man with tattoos older than Chadwick and a patience fuse shorter than a gnat's lifespan, had to slam on his brakes. The load of chemical drums wobbled dangerously, the steel screeching in protest. Chadwick didn't even flinch. He just kept walking, radiating that specific kind of invincibility that only comes from never having been punched in the mouth or crushed by a hydraulic press. Listen, before I tell you how I burn this kingdom of stupidity to the ground, you need to understand the stakes. In a place like this, the machinery is the apex predator, and I'm the zookeeper keeping it fed and happy. Chadwick thought he was the predator because he signed the checks. He was about to learn a very painful lesson in physics. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on the production floor. Usually, Big Jim would stand on a crate, shout a few profanities about quotas, ask about everyone's kids by name, and we'd get back to work. Chadwick had other ideas. He had a stage built, a literal stage rented overnight, and a sound system that cost more than our quarterly PP budget. He walked up there with a wireless headset microphone like he was about to drop a TED Talk on synergizing the paradigm shift. The workers, sweaty, tired, covered in grime, and smelling of solvent, stared at him with dead eyes. Team, Chadwick began, his voice booming with unearned confidence. I've been looking at the numbers, and frankly, we're living in the past. My father built a great foundation. But foundations are meant to be built upon, not lived in. He paused for applause. A wrench clattered to the floor somewhere in the back. That was the only sound. We need to get lean, he continued, pacing the stage. We need to disrupt the industrial chemical space. I've been looking at our overhead. We have too much redundancy, too many checks, too many balances. We're moving slow because we're afraid to run. My stomach dropped. In my line of work, running means slipping on an oil slick and cracking your skull open. Redundancy is the reason we haven't had a fatality since 2004. He pointed a manicured finger at the crowd. Starting today, we implement Project Velocity. We are cutting the fat. If a process doesn't directly generate revenue, it's on the chopping block. We aren't just a factory anymore. We're a brand. I felt the eyes of the shift supervisors drift toward me. They knew exactly what non-revenue generating meant in corporate speak. It meant maintenance. It meant training. It meant me. After the speech, which included the phrase aggressive optimization at least 6 times, I cornered him near the break room. The air in there smelled like microwaved tilapia and dashed hopes, a familiar perfume for anyone in manufacturing. Mr. Chadwick, I said, keeping my voice flat. I don't do fake nice. I'm Mara. Safety and compliance. He looked me up and down, his eyes glazing over as soon as he saw my steel-toed boots and high-visibility vest. I wasn't a spreadsheet. I was an obstacle. Yes, Mara, he said, checking his Apple Watch. I saw your department's budget. Impressive numbers. You spend more on preventative training than we do on marketing. That's because marketing doesn't stop chlorine gas from melting people's lungs, sir, I said. We have a mandatory safety audit of the pressure valves on line 3 due next week. The downtime is scheduled for Tuesday. Chadwick laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound, like someone stepping on dead leaves. Downtime? No, we're in a sprint, Mara. Cancel the downtime. Run the machines. We have orders to fill and investors to impress. Those valves are rated for 5,000 hours, I said, my voice dropping an octave. They're at 5,200. If one blows, it's not an oopsie, it's a crater. He stepped closer, invading my personal space with the smell of expensive cologne and incompetence. You safety types are all the same. You deal in what-ifs, I deal in what-is. And what is happening is that we are running line 3 at 110% capacity starting tomorrow. Don't be a dinosaur, Mara. Evolve or go extinct. He patted my shoulder, patted it like I was a golden retriever, and walked away, typing on his phone again. I stood there in the hallway, the fluorescent lights humming their low-frequency buzz of anxiety. I watched him go. He thought he was winning. He didn't realize that in my world, evolve or go extinct usually refers to safety regulations written in blood. If he wanted to cancel the audit, fine. I walked back to my office, unlocked my filing cabinet, and pulled out a fresh, crisp, refusal of work order based on imminent danger form. Evolve or go extinct, I muttered to myself, uncapping my favorite red pen. Careful what you wish for, kid. I didn't know it then, but I wasn't just documenting a violation. I was starting a war. And unlike Chadwick, I wasn't bringing a PowerPoint presentation to a gunfight. I was bringing the state of Florida statutes. But first, I had to let him hang himself. The decay didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, grinding erosion. Under Chadwick's Project Velocity, the atmosphere at Site 14 shifted from a disciplined industrial hum to frantic sweatshop panic. 2 weeks into his reign, I found the temp workers. I was down near the mixing vats, giant stainless steel cauldrons capable of dissolving a Honda Civic, when I saw 3 kids who looked like they should be bagging groceries. They were wearing standard streetwear sneakers. No steel toes. No chemical aprons. One of them had his safety goggles propped up on his forehead like sunglasses while he poured a reactant into a hopper. I moved so fast I think I broke the sound barrier. Stop. I barked, my voice cutting through the mechanical din. The kid jumped, nearly dropping the canister. Who authorized you to be on this deck? Where's your PPE? Where's your badge? The kid looked terrified. The new manager, Mr. Chad's assistant. He said we just needed to keep the hopper full. Said the gear slowed us down. My blood didn't boil, it froze. Cold rage is useful. Hot rage makes you sloppy. I marched straight to my office and typed memo 4002, detailing the OSHA violations. I sent it with a high importance tag. 10 minutes later, I got a reply from Chadwick's new operations director, a frat brother named Tyler. Asterisk reply, Mara, let's not be alarmist. We're agile staffing. The boys are just filling gaps. Let's focus on solutions, not problems. T-checks, asterisk. Solutions. Right. The absurdity peaked that afternoon. Chadwick announced a rebranding celebration. They cleared out a section of the warehouse floor, Zone D, specifically designated for flammable storage, and set up high-top tables with white tablecloths. They brought in caterers. They brought in a DJ. I stood on the mezzanine, watching waiters circulate with trays of champagne flutes among stacks of pallets labeled highly flammable oxidizer. It was a scene from a fever dream. You had investors in 3-piece suits clinking glasses next to a forklift that was leaking transmission fluid. You had a drone buzzing overhead, filming content for social media, flying dangerously close to the overhead sprinkler heads. I pulled out my phone. I didn't take a selfie. I took photos of the champagne bar blocking the emergency fire exit. I took a video of the DJ plugging his massive soundboard into a surge protector that was daisy-chained to a manufacturing outlet labeled Dedicated Circuit, Do Not Use. Enjoying the party, Mara? I turned to see Chadwick holding a glass of bubbly, his face flushed with triumph. "Chadwick," I said, pointing to the bar. "If a fire starts in the oxidizing zone, those investors have exactly 40 seconds to evacuate before the oxygen is sucked out of the room. Currently, they'd have to climb over a shrimp cocktail tower to survive." Chadwick rolled his eyes. "You're such a downer. Look at them. They love the energy. We're showing them that manufacturing is sexy." "Safety violations aren't sexy, Chadwick. They're actionable." He leaned in, his breath smelling of expensive yeast. "Consider this a verbal warning. Get with the program, or we might have to rethink your fit here." He walked away to high-five an investor. I stood there for a moment, watching the drone buzz like an angry hornet. A verbal warning? To me? The woman who wrote the damn safety manual? I walked back to my office. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I opened my safe. Inside was a black binder. I labeled it the Chadwick files. I printed out the email from Tyler. I printed the timestamped photos of the blocked exits. I printed the roster of untrained temp workers. "Rethink my fit," I whispered to the empty room. I wasn't just collecting paper anymore. I was building a coffin, and I was going to make sure every nail was perfectly, legally compliant. The Monday morning leadership meeting was about to be the funeral, but Chadwick didn't know he was the one in the casket. The Monday morning leadership meeting was usually held in the glass-walled conference room we nicknamed the Fishbowl. Under Big Jim, these meetings were boring but necessary rituals of coffee and complaints. Under Chadwick, they were performance art. The mahogany table was populated by the new guard, Tyler from Ops, who wore fleece vests and looked like he thought hard labor was a CrossFit workout, Jessica, a twitchy HR director who looked constantly on the verge of tears, and a few holdovers from the old regime who sat there like hostages in a bank robbery. I walked in with a single folder. No laptop, no coffee, just the Valve report. The atmosphere was manic. Chadwick was scribbling on a whiteboard, drawing arrows that pointed to dollar signs. "Q3 projections are looking massive, team," he announced, slapping the board with a marker. "If we sustain this output, we're looking at a 20% bump in valuation before the IPO roadshow next month." He turned to me, his smile dropping a few millimeters. "Mara, good of you to join us. I assume you have something brief? We're tight on time." "It's about the Line 3 pressure valves," I said, remaining standing. I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward him. "They're now at 5,400 hours. That's 400 hours past the manufacturer's critical failure rating. The sensors are showing micro-vibrations in the housing. We need to shut down Line 3 immediately. Today. Right now." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the AC and Tyler tapping a pen on the table. Chadwick didn't even open the folder. He looked at it like it was a dead red I'd placed on his lunch tray. "Shut down," he repeated, letting the words hang there. "Shut down our highest performing line 2 days before the biggest investor walkthrough in company history? The walkthrough is irrelevant if the line explodes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The physics don't care about your IPO, Chadwick. If that valve fails, it releases superheated steam at 600 psi. It will cut a person in half. Literally. I've attached the gruesome photos from a similar incident in '98 for reference." Chadwick picked up the folder. He weighed it in his hand. "You know what I think, Mara?" he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "I think you're addicted to drama. I think you create these little crises so you can feel important. Because without them, what are you? Just a cost center." "I am the reason you have a license to operate," I said, my grip on the chair back tightening until my knuckles turned white. Chadwick stood up. He walked over to the corner of the room where a heavy-duty industrial shredder sat, a new addition meant for security. "We're done with the fear-mongering," he said. He held up my report. The report with the vibration logs, the report with the urgent signatures from the maintenance chief. "This," he said, "is a waste of budget. And frankly, so is your role." He fed the folder into the shredder. The sound was aggressive, a grinding, tearing screech as the metal teeth chewed through the paper. He didn't break eye contact with me the entire time. He smiled as the data, the warnings, and the safety of his employees turned into confetti in a clear plastic bin. "Get out," Chadwick said softly. "You're done, Mara." Pack your things. We're pivoting to a distributed safety model, which means we don't need a director of no. The room was frozen. Tyler looked down at his shoes. Jessica from HR looked like she was about to vomit. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity. It was the feeling of a heavy burden being lifted off my shoulders and placed into the hands of gravity. Understood, I said. My voice was so calm it frightened me. I turned around and walked to the door. Leave your badge at the front desk. Chadwick shouted after me, looking for one last reaction. I didn't turn back. I walked out of the fishbowl, past the rows of cubicles, and down the hall to my office. I grabbed my purse. I grabbed the framed picture of my dog. And I grabbed the Chadwick files from the safe. I logged into my computer one last time. I navigated to the state compliance portal. I didn't delete anything. That would be illegal. Instead, I went to the Authorized Site Safety Officer field, the field that legally allows the plant to run hazardous operations. I clicked Resign Commission. A warning box popped up on the screen in angry red text. Asterisk warning. Removal of the primary safety officer without a certified replacement will result in immediate suspension of operating license class 4. Do you wish to proceed? Asterisk. I looked at the yes button. I thought about the shredded report. I thought about the steam valve vibrating like a bomb waiting for a trigger. I clicked yes. Then I walked out to my car, the Florida sun blinding and hot, and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Hello. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Iron Mike, I said, lighting a metaphorical cigarette in my mind. It's Mara. Tell me, how's your schedule looking for Friday? The drive from the industrial park to my condo in Sarasota is usually a 40-minute slog through traffic, but today, it felt like floating. I had the windows down, the humidity whipping my hair around. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a text from Jessica in HR. Asterisk Mara, I'm so sorry. He's manic. He wants me to draft a severance package, but wants you to sign an NDA first. Please don't do anything rash. Asterisk. I laughed. Rash? Honey, I'm not rash. I'm compliance. I'm procedure. I'm the fine print that kills you. I ignored the text and focused on the call connected to my Bluetooth. Mara, the voice on the other end repeated. I haven't heard from you since the conference in Orlando. You calling to yell at me about the updated confined space regulations again? No, Mike, I said, merging onto I-75. I'm calling to ask if you've checked the filings for Site 14 today. Mike, Iron Mike to those who fear him, which is everyone in the industrial sector of Florida, paused. He is the lead inspector for the State Division of Industrial Safety. He's a man who wears a hard hat to church. No, Mike said slowly, the tone of his voice shifting. Why? Did you file an update? I filed a resignation of commission, I said. As of 11:42 a.m., Site 14 has no licensed Class 4 safety officer on record. There was a heavy silence on the line. I heard the sound of Mike typing on a keyboard in the background. I see it, he murmured. Jesus, Mara. You were the only thing keeping that rusty bucket legal. Did you retire? I was optimized, I said. Phased out. Apparently, safety is a non-revenue generating obstruction. Who's the replacement? Mike asked. The law says they have 24 hours to appoint a certified interim or operations must cease. There is no replacement, Mike. Just an MBA named Chadwick who thinks OSHA is a suggestion and a shredder where my valve reports used to be. A shredder? Mike's voice dropped. It became very, very quiet. Did you say he shredded a report? Line 3, pressure valves, 5,400 hours, microfractures in the housing. I recommended immediate shutdown. He recommended I clear out my desk. Is line 3 running? They're sprinting for an investor show, I said. 110% capacity. I heard a sound I hadn't heard in years. The sound of Iron Mike cracking his knuckles. Mara, he said, are you officially off the clock? I am a private citizen enjoying the afternoon breeze. Good. Then you won't mind if I schedule a random, comprehensive site audit. I think I'm free. Friday is perfect, I said. They're having a big walkthrough. Investors, press, drones. Drones, Mike scoffed. Inside a Class B facility? That's a violation of airspace statutes regarding volatile storage. Add it to the list. Wednesday and Thursday passed in a blur of serenity for me and, I assume, escalating chaos for Site 14. I spent the time organizing my files. I received a desperate call from Tyler on Thursday afternoon. They couldn't reset a breaker because the system required a safety director's override code. Just give me the password, Mara, he pleaded. We can pay you a consulting fee. Tyler, I said, pouring a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. Giving you my password would be a federal crime. It would be falsifying safety records. If the system is locked, it's for a reason. You should hire a certified director. We don't have time. The investors are coming tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Then I guess you better hope the investors like darkness. I blocked the number. Friday morning dawned with that oppressive Florida brightness. I arrived at the industrial park at 9:30 a.m., but I didn't park in the lot. I sat across the street at AL's Greasy Spoon, a diner with a panoramic view of the main entrance. The place looked like a circus. Chadwick had installed a literal red carpet leading into the manufacturing bay. There were valets for a chemical plant, and a mobile espresso bar. At 9:58 a.m., the real guests arrived. It wasn't a town car. It was a fleet of 3 white state government SUVs with the distinct, devastating blandness of bureaucracy. They pulled right up to the curb, blocking the red carpet. The doors opened. Stepping out of the lead vehicle was Iron Mike. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing his faded blue field jacket and a hard hat that had seen more disasters than FEMA. He looked like a boulder that had decided to go for a walk. I paid my tab. Keep the change, I told the waitress. I'm going to watch a demolition. I walked across the street, standing on the public sidewalk just outside the property line. Through the glass lobby doors, I saw the collision. Chadwick froze mid-handshake with an investor. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I knew the script. Asterisk, who are you? You can't be here. Asterisk, and Mike's response. I'm the state of Florida, and you're in my house. Mike pushed past him toward the production floor. The investors, sensing drama, followed like moths to a flame. I slipped in behind the group. No one noticed me. We walked onto the production floor, and the noise was horrific. Line 3 was shaking, visibly shaking. The floor grating beneath our feet buzzed. Look at this. Chadwick yelled over the noise, trying to regain control. Maximum output. You're breaking records. Mike walked straight to the pressure gauge on the main valve. He tapped it. The needle was pinned in the red. He turned to Chadwick. Shut it down. I can't. Chadwick yelled. The overrides are locked. Management doesn't have the keys. Mike turned to the crowd. Gentlemen, ladies, he bellowed. I am declaring this site an immediate hazard zone. If you value your skin, you will evacuate now. The investors didn't need to be told twice. They scattered. No, wait. Chadwick screamed, chasing them. It's safe. It's innovation. Then, a sound cut through the air, a high-pitched shriek. The relief valve on line 3. It wasn't blowing yet, but it was leaking. A jet of white steam shot out, slicing the air just feet above Chadwick's head. He ducked, covering his expensive haircut. Mike didn't flinch. He pulled a heavy chain and a red padlock from his bag. He walked over to the main power cutoff for line 3, the big red lever. He didn't just pull it, he slammed it down with the force of God. The machinery groaned. The screaming whine dropped in pitch, lower and lower, until it became a dying shudder. The lights flickered and went to emergency backups. Silence crashed into the room. Tag it, Mike ordered his team. Lock out everything. Gates, breakers, valves. Nobody enters, nobody leaves. Chadwick stood up, his suit dusted with grime. He saw me standing by a pillar. His eyes went wide. You, he whispered. You did this. No, Chadwick, I said, pointing to the steam valve that was still dripping superheated water. Physics did this. I just made sure someone was here to watch. Mike walked over, slapping a bright orange "Stop Work" sticker on the control panel. He handed Chadwick a clipboard thick with citations. Operation without a license. 42 counts of willful negligence. Reckless endangerment. The fines start at $300,000 per day. Per day? Chadwick stammered. But the IPO is next month. Not anymore, I said. Chadwick looked at me with pure venom. You're fired. You'll never work in this industry again. Chadwick, I said, leaning in close. I'm a compliance officer with a spotless record who just whistleblowed a disaster. I'll have 5 job offers by Monday. You? You're the guy who got padlocked on livestream. I pointed to the drone operator, who shrugged. I was streaming to the investor Zoom call, bro, sorry. Chadwick turned white. He dropped the clipboard and ran for his car. Mike walked over to me, unlit cigar in hand. Hell of a morning, Mara. Hell of a morning, Mike. The fallout was swift. The viral clip of the steam leak became a meme captioned "Innovation Explosion." The IPO was cancelled within 48 hours. Big Jim miraculously recovered from his hospice bed to fire his son. On Monday, I was walking along Siesta Key Beach when I got the voicemail from Big Jim. Mara, the kid's an idiot. Mike won't let us cut the chain without a certified director's signature. He explicitly asked for you. Name your price. I didn't call back immediately. I waited 2 days. Negotiation 101. When I finally returned, it was as an independent consultant. My rate was triple my old salary. My first condition? Full amnesty and back pay for the workforce. Big Jim grumbled, but he signed. The chain on the gate wasn't coming off without me. The factory reopened 3 weeks later. It was quiet. It was boring. The innovation banners were in the dumpster. I walked the floor on the first day back. The hum was right. The vibration was gone. Hector drove past on his forklift and gave me a subtle salute. I walked up to the mezzanine and looked out over the floor, the sparks, the steam, the orderly movement of people doing dangerous jobs safely. I took a sip of my lukewarm, terrible breakroom coffee and smiled. Sometimes, the law writes better endings than I ever could. And, sometimes, you just have to hand the idiot the scissors and wait for him to run.